Let's wait for Jay to go live and give the intro,
Alright.
and then we'll have you tell your story.
Yeah, we're good. We're live.
Sick.
Yeah, so like there were like these food containers waiting to be cleaned, and we had just got done watching the new Haunted Mansion, which is really cute. And I was like getting up to go get water, and I heard something fall in the kitchen, but like it was dark in there, the light was off. And I didn't see any cats moving. All the cats are pretty much asleep. My mom was upstairs, so half of them are upstairs with her. And any of the ones that are still downstairs are asleep. So like that's weird. But I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't really care. But then I realized that what had fallen was a container. But the thing that was really odd was that the container that was on top of it was still on the counter. It was the container underneath of it that had came away from the counter and left the other container on still on the counter, the one that was on top.
Right. So like you got things moving that like, realistically, according to the laws of physics, should not be moving.
Right. I was like, that
Right.
is really weird. And then it's funny because like I tried to do a reading, but it was just a very weird. Something was there. Something was kind of moving around. Like I had done my first mediumship session in a really long time.
Oh, well.
And it felt really good. Like I mean, well,
yeah.
When you don't use it, it kind of gets really exhausting. But it felt good to do it again. But the problem is that like I kind of almost forgot to actually sit, like, not just to walk through a haunted location and be able to like perceive things. I'm talking like a full sitting, Darian sitting there with me as I'm trying to connect with whatever's there. It was odd and not really sure what happened, honestly. I don't even want to get into all of it just because it was really strange. But yeah, so I'm just tending, I've been tending to the altar, the ancestral shrine anyway, but just especially lately because this month has been a little a little hectic.
Busy.
What's going on with everybody else?
Hey, I'm on push to talk, so I have to be conscious of I can't just talk.
Lots of spooky shit.
But I love how my intro was just like me like sliding into the like camera like I intended. I was hoping that you started the stream right as I slid into.
You're a little quiet, Rue.
I literally have you up at 200% and cannot hear you.
I have to move. It's just sound issues, people. The mic. I can't see my keyboard like where the mic needs to be.
Move the mic closer to your mouth is what you do.
Then it's in frame, see?
It doesn't matter. Mine's in frame too.
Yeah, you can be in frame. That's like a whole ass look.
Yeah.
I don't like it in frame.
Yeah, well, we're doing it live,
It
baby.
must be in frame. Yeah, that sounds way better. It doesn't sound like...
Well, that doesn't pick up at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up.
Anywho.
Okay, don't tell the host of the podcast to shut up. I'm just... don't mind me.
Well, whatever.
Everything's all new because I'm sitting back at my computer.
Anywho. Tech issues aside, as always. Sophia, you said spooky shit has been going on in your life.
Yeah, it was kind of weird last night. My partner and I were watching The Changeling season finale. I'm actually mad at how bad they worked the season finale. Felt like they didn't have enough material to finish it properly.
That sucks.
They cut out something that or at least it appears like they cut something that I thought we recorded. I'm not sure if that's under NDA, so I have to shut the fuck up about it, but it did not end how I thought it was going to end. And it did not look how I thought it was going to look. So I was a little bit annoyed. But also, they did this really good episode with Adina Porter playing Lillian, Apollo's mom. And she's in a hotel called the Elk, in a motel called the Elk Motel. That's like a seedy, like dive. They charge by the hour because like You get it. I'm not gonna explain it.
Yes. Hourly rates.
And like, she has like this whole vivid hallucination thing, and it's like an hour and 15 minutes. It feels like watching this because it's really good and engaging, and her performance fucking nails it. But she's like having a very clear fucking PTSD episode, and then like veering into a little bit of spoilers, it appears like she goes back in time and stops a younger version of herself from jumping off of the window ledge to kill herself. So like,
Okay.
it was fucking wild. And then like, there was just a lot of really on the nose synchronicities happening between like Chris and I and like that episode. So it feels like this weekend was like synchronicity dialed up to 11, you know. I don't know what the fuck it means, but something's like that and screaming at us. So, you know, that's fucking life sometimes.
That
Sorry, I'm
sounds
gonna
quite
fuck up your
spooky.
screen because I have to turn off my camera because I just got fucking nail polish everywhere.
What? I don't know what you said. I heard something my screen. Oh, you got up. I didn't even notice. You weren't even at the computer. Well, there you go.
I got a kitty
today.
here.
Oh, the kitty. The kitty. I always wanted an all black cat. I got it. It's fine. How is school going, Scott? I know you've been looking away at that.
God.
Oh no, is it bad? I'm sorry. Never mind.
No, well, So, I really doubt my professor's going to see this. So,
Yeah, right.
it's really not a great. So it's not because of me exactly. I started off. I was doing pretty well actually. I mean, will I ever particularly enjoy algebra? No.
No.
I'm not
Same.
particularly fond of it at all. However, I wasn't doing bad. I know a hell of a lot more math than I ever did, but so the problem this semester is that I've never had a college professor who couldn't control his class. And the thing is that I am in school with a bunch of children just out of high school. Like this is their first kind of like semester kind of thing, right? Like they're clearly like just, like they graduated over the summer and started college, right? And they like, they're sitting there, they're watching, this one she sits like there's this really nice quiet girl and then it's her and this girl's boyfriend and they just sit there and they talk and she also always has her bag up and she has her MacBook up behind her bag and she's watching a series. She binge watches, I don't even know what series she's binge watching, but she sits there and binge watches this show. She watches an episode and a half for our class.
In class?
And yeah, in class. And then you have right, like literally diagonal from them in my row, the way the class is set up, it's kind of like row, like, two rows, one aisle kind of thing. And diagonal from them is like these three kids that are like, they're always talking, or their phone is always like going off at really weird times, like they're like a video or something.
And
And
the teacher's just doing nothing the fuck about
and
it.
he sees it and he does absolutely nothing. And then on top of that, he is like flying through the material. Like there are times where like I just literally throw my pencil down because I'm just kind of like this is ridiculous. And then he says to us, he's like, if you find that you can't keep up, the notes will be up later. And I was like, but I'm not paying to go read notes on a computer. I could have stayed home and looked at the slides. That's not the same thing. I'm looking for you to instruct me on how to fucking do this shit, and I hate it. And I hate you for not teaching me it.
Right.
And I don't really hate him. He's nice. Yeah, he's almost too nice for me to say that,
Right.
And it's like, get a hold of your class, slow the fuck down, and yeah. So it's like
Not everyone who teaches is really equipped to teach. Not everyone is a
Right.
good teacher, unfortunately. I mean, it's
Right.
just because your subject material, in and out, does not mean that you are a good teacher of that subject.
And he, weirdly enough, he happens to be a PhD in mathematics, which
Wow.
I found out later. I know. But he's young. I mean, he's a
Wow.
new PhD. Like he's not much older than you, Jay. Like
Baby PhD.
yeah. And I don't know, like he can't control the class, he goes too fast. And to make it even worse, it's just kind of like on top, like for me, on top of everything else, it was like, I ended up failing my first test because, Darian ended up having to sign a living will, which really fucked with my head, even though I know it's
Yeah.
protocol, it's nothing serious, but
It's
carries
a weight.
And then on top of that, like just money troubles out the ass. It's just kind of like I was exhausted. I was tired. I'm not used to like another thing too. I think because you specifically asked about school, so let's stay on topic. But I'm not used to being completely uncomfortable in a semester. So that's like another thing. Like I'm just not comfortable with the distractions and his teaching style, if you can even call it that. Like
Right.
it's just like I've never been so uncomfortable before.
It kind of feels like it's completely out of your control, like in a way.
Yeah, and it's not even that I can't understand the material, it's just that how do I navigate all of this going on? I don't know. And then like a classmate of mine, the only one that actually like the only one I'm talking to because he's a bit older. Me and him were talking, and he ended up pulling the professor aside the other day and was like, "Hey, you got to get these kids under control because it's just like
it's too much.
We can't we like because him too. Like he like the thing is that he's a little bit more a little bit more aggressive than me, I guess, because he keeps like the kids that distract him are the three on the other side, and he turns around and he'll like stare at them, and he'll give them that like if you don't shut the fuck up in the next few seconds, I'm going to beat you the fuck up kind of look.
I will flip this desk.
And they normally shut up when he does that, but the thing is, it's like it's exhausting because it doesn't stop. It's like every Tuesday and Thursday they do the same thing over and over and over again. So yeah, school's weird this semester, like really weird. I have a tutoring session tomorrow at 5:30 to 6:30 because my next test is Thursday, and yeah. But I will say that I was having like a really bad like 2 weeks to the point where like even Darian was a little worried that I was getting a little weird. My mental health was really bad. And like I was like really odd and really off. And Darian was like a little worried that I might had spent some time, in
On
Friends or
vacation.
something. But because I was really weird. And I actually ended up blacking out at one point that week of my first test. Sometimes when I'm in a really bad place, I could black out completely. Like my vision goes out, kind of black out. I'm still moving, but I can't see anything, and it's really weird. And I'm just feeling full disassociation. And I was on my way to school that Tuesday. The test was on Thursday, and I ended up having to turn back around. I'm like running home crying from trying to get to school on Tuesday morning. This was like 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. But thankfully, my therapist has been great. I've had 2 very long therapy sessions, and I feel a lot better. And I've been like, easing back into Magick as well. Like I made sure to make it a priority when I kind of fully came out of disassociation, and it's sort of everything's sort of helping and it's easing. I am doing some money work. I got some money work going. Yeah. Absolutely.
We were
To whoever
actually
just burped.
Yeah, that
we
was
were
That was me. That was me. I'm back off mute.
Oh, since you're back, Sophia, we actually have a question from Chris Starr. What is the kitty's name?
Oh, that kitty? Hugin. The cats here are named Hugin and Moonin. Very on brand.
Very good.
Love it.
Cute.
Mm-hmm. They're little sweethearts. Hugin is the super friendly cat who acts like a kitty, even though she's like a fully grown adult now. And Moonin is this kind of shy, reserved kitty who, if you win her love, she'll be more affectionate than her sister and like cuddle you for fucking hours in the morning. Like they're both precious babies and angels, and I love them forever and always.
Feel that. Chris Starr says, I love it. Oh.
Yeah, they good
Also,
kitties.
to Scott, she said dissociating on a college campus or out in public it can be very scary. So Chris Starr empathizes with you, Scott. And obviously, you know me, I'm just over here. I'm not silently nodding. You can see me. Can you see me, honey?
I can see you. Yeah,
I know you can see. I was talking to my other honey.
Well,
Yeah, no, it's like,
oh no, you're
Don't
glitching
you
out.
fucking dare!
Oh damn.
What? What's going on?
Ruse
My fucking
fucking
camera's glitching.
yeah. It
As
was
soon
a
as
little...
I said, "Oh, you can see me now," my camera's gonna start glitching.
It's telling you how much it loves you. You know, that's
So-
camera's way of sharing the love.
There is a post in our Discord from one of our members of our Discord had pulled this card from this Arrow Oracle deck thing. And I wanted to see if I could share it and you guys could see, or you could just look in the Discord and look at the card. I wanted, because they were looking for, our input on the card, and there's like a ton of symbology here, so I thought this might be a fun little thing to do on the podcast.
is it?
So let me see, Scott, if I could. I might just be able to
Share your screen.
share up here.
Now I have to click watch stream. Holy.
Yeah.
Like right.
Oh yeah, it's a style of deck I am not familiar with.
Right. But
What do I click?
feel like, can you see?
There's a stream option. You're on mobile, right?
No, I'm on my computer.
Okay. In any case, you should be able to navigate to the cross section where you see everybody's cameras. You'll see me, Jay, Rue.
Oh,
You'll also
yeah,
see an
yeah.
additional camera up now that says watch stream that'll show you what is being shared on Jay's computer.
Wee. Oh, okay. Huh.
Oh, okay. So I click. Okay. Yeah. So this is the card that they on.
That's raw, isn't it?
That's what I thought. Or
Yes.
like,
Probably. There's not too many bird-headed Egyptian people.
so I was trying to like pick this apart symbol by symbol, right? So I am not really keen on numerology, so I really am not sure like what 20 would represent in numerology. I don't know if anyone else here.
Usually 20 in the tarot actually represents its path on the Kabbalistic tree, because if you look at all the different spheres and the spaces that connect each of them, the major arcana are tied to each one of those pathways. So like the devil is from Hod to what's the bottom one? Gebura? No, it's Malkut. Yeah, it's Malkut. From Hod to Malkut, you have like the path of the devil, for example, right? So each of those
that
individual
corresponds
little
to the number 20.
It's the 20th position in the tarot, just keeping their numerical spaces. But I don't pretend to understand the.
Well, 20 is not the devil, if I could step in. 20 would actually be the penultimate step to the end, because the end is 21, which is
I'm not saying the devil's 20. I'm saying the path between Malkut and Chod is the devil, for example. I don't know what path number 20 is, but it's
so
where it falls on the Kabbalistic tree is what determines what the archetype itself is, if I remember correctly. Because like there's now I'm gonna have to find it. There's a diagram. I think it's from the Golden Dawn or Stalagmites, Kabbalah, 3 tarot positions.
Also, on the subject of Kabbalah, so like up in the top left corner is what looks to be, I believe, some Hebrew symbol.
It is.
I don't know what
Brushing
that
up on
means.
it right
I'm
now.
not really sure.
Okay,
anyone
this
has a
one's
reference
wrong.
list of that.
It would be Shin.
Shin? Is that what it is?
Shin, which stands for S.
So thankfully, I have a Kemetic pagan in house, so that was pretty.
Yay!
I was just like,
Did you
come here
consult
and
the
help.
expert?
I was like, is that Ra? And he goes, it could be Horus. And
Oh,
looking at
Ah.
Horus, it's definitely Horus.
the
Okay.
sun.
And
So,
so, mhm.
no, you go ahead.
No, I mean, from just looking at the symbology of the card, Horus representing a god in the form of a falcon, whose right eye was the sun or morning star, representing power and quintessence, and whose left eye was the moon or evening star, representing healing.
Sick. In show notes, I just dropped the Kabbalistic tree correspondences of the paths with the tarot.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
God of the
This one's
sky.
correct because it has the devil placed between Chod and Malkut. And it correlates to a Hebrew letter that goes in each path because and like certain alchemical or astrological symbols are in there too.
Okay,
I'm
so
not gonna
is
pretend like
this
I understand
symbol
all of
in
this. I'm
there?
not a Thalamite.
Alright, so
Let me see here. Yeah, and there's the Kabbalistic tree directly above the head of that being in the card with the 2 snakes and the bird head.
yeah, because these these definitely look like snakes to me, like in this card. So like,
Yeah,
there's
bring
definitely
up
some
the
sort of like
Kabbalistic
snake.
tree on this stream. Yeah, those are definitely
Yeah.
snakes. Can it work? It looks. Oh,
Yeah, I just gotta
okay.
Oop.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. Yep. So like you can zoom in and see where the paths and the shit aligns up, even though it's a little pixelized. Oop! It just moved over to a spider.
Another picture.
Spiders.
Hi, Alice.
Right. It was for a grade school assignment.
Nice. But yeah, you can see the dotted lines that they all connect, and one of them is
Oh, you said
represented
it's
by
called
one of the.
Shin, right? Oh my god.
Yes, which I
Here it
actually
is.
just did like a quick. It's funny. Shin is the 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Its
There you
numerical
go.
value is 300. It means tooth, steadfast, change, return, and year.
Oh, yeah, that's the gematria. So gematria is where you break down the numerical values in a word in Hebrew, and then you assign the number association to it. You can find it in Sefer Sephiroth, or there's another one it's in. I can't remember off the top of my head. But for example, this is where 777 being the number of God, and like 666 being the number of the beast comes from. It's gematria.
So back to all of the side tangents we just had. Let's
Yes.
decipher this card. It's like, when I saw this card, I was like, this is like loaded with a ton of like symbolism. Like everything is a symbol in this.
I really can't translate a card from a deck that I'm not familiar with drawing from, right?
That is true too, because like for me, like it does relate a lot to like context. Also like the context.
I literally
of the
was
reading.
gonna say the same thing. I was like, what was the context of the pull in the first place?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if
like if we're getting into divination,
this
is the divination system I use, the Wild Unknown Archetypes. It is
I love
a
that.
serious
I
fucking
have it.
banger.
It is amazing, and I
Oh,
love it
it's
so
so
much.
good, isn't it? It doesn't fuck around. It'll tell you exactly what you need to know. And like, it doesn't hesitate to be like, death, despair, horrible shit. Also, wonderful shit. Fucking plenty. Or like, just it'll fucking tell you what you need to know.
Yeah, it's absolutely great.
I was
It was
throwing these cards last night. One of my favorite things about them is they're circular. So when I'm throwing cards, I literally throw them and I toss them like a disc, and they'll catch the wind of the toss, and some of them will spin upside down. And if I get more than 7, I reset and restart. If I get 5 or 4, I'll use the spreads that correlate to the 5 or the 4. If I only get 3, I'll do that one. And if I get an extra card and it's 6, then I will point out the other card as a separate factor involved and interpret it as it comes. Like last night, we had a 6-card spread for Chris, and the card that ended up flipping, because it was under auspicious circumstances, it flipped itself when I was shuffling the deck, and then it flipped again later on when I was tossing it. The card that was flipping was the former archetype that my partner used to embody pre-transition, and it's like off and to the side now because it's like a relevant factor, but it's like removed from who they are at this point. It's super fucking spot on, right? So yeah, if y'all ever want a serious, it's not fucking around deck, let me just draw one card, even though I don't like drawing them loosely like this. Fuck with, it's the card that jumped last night. It's the crone.
Lol.
yeah.
So, Rue, what did you say that Shin was again? The representation of that? I'm really trying to decipher this card. There's like so much symbolism here.
Shin is the 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The numerical value is 300. It represents change. I don't even have this up in front of me. I'm just trying to remember this. Hold on.
I don't know, because I'm looking at this card, right? Like, this card, to me, it feels really big. So, and the fact that it says Aeon at the bottom, so Aeon is like an immeasurably large period, of time, right? It's a.
We should ask what the deck
to
is.
me, this kind of feel. I have a. It's in the chat, but like to me, this feels like like a new Aeon is coming, like big change. Because also up in the top right corner, there's the triangle, which that's fire, right? The alchemical symbol for fire, just the triangle, or just triangle,
if it doesn't
or
have
just
a
fire
line on it, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have a line. It's just a triangle, and I'm sure that represents fire. So I don't know, like this to me feels like this coming of a new Aeon, and the fact that it's Horus, like what was Horus's role in?
God of the sky, helper of Ra. He governed, I know, healing. Let me see. Darian, of course, is like, I'm not in the mood to talk to things, so he was like, did I help? Good, bye. Well, this is yours. Harmony up and over.
Yeah, Chris was saying in the chat, snakes give me yin and yang vibes, and along with description of Horus, the card that gives me a sense it's about balance of forces. Yeah, like it's something like the coming of a new Aeon, the balancing of forces. Honestly, it really feels like exactly what we're living through right now. It feels like we are going through the great equalizer, the great balancing is, in motion.
Yeah, and the Aeon card does in most decks come right towards the end of the major arcana. It's usually like I think it does it precede the world, or does it come after it, you know what I mean? Because if it comes after the world, oh god, I don't even want to interpret it because I'll probably be wrong if I don't. Before, okay.
World
And it's
is
probably
the last,
like because the world is like the magician coming to understand that they are the universe incarnate, right? That's why it's the world. But like I think it's tied into that, right? Like maybe it has to do with the magician understanding that they are intrinsically tied to the shifting of the ages, because because we cause change.
It's Judgment
No
Day.
magician just sits here and does nothing, right? Unless you're an armchair.
Yeah.
Which, like, really no shade to armchairs if you know you're an armchair and you're not acting like you're the fucking Ubermensch. Like, nobody needs to be some big dick wizard, right? It's not
That's a good
mandatory.
point. Like, if you know that you're an armchair, like, it's just that I think that's what bothers me about armchair magicians, are the ones that are but claim they are not, and it's like, just
Hmm.
there's
I
nothing
think the
wrong with
worst.
doing what you're doing. Just stop saying you're something that you're not.
I think the worst is when a goth girl wears a pentagram, therefore she thinks she's a witch, and
Yep.
you're like, "Oh
That.
shit, you're into magic?" And she's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh shit, what's your system? What's your methodology? What are you doing?" And then they get really shady at you, like you're fucking trying to like
They think you're
undermine them
coming
or
at
something,
them.
and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's like you're coming at it from like you're excited to have met another practitioner and you want to talk about shit, and they're coming at it from a point of, why the fuck are you questioning me about this shit, right? Like, for example, I worked with a guy this summer who wore prayer beads, right? Like Buddhist prayer beads. I'm like, "Oh shit, you got your 108 on." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Prayer beads. Like, you doing any Om Vajrapani Hum Fats? You got any like man or what? I can't remember what it was called, but I said the correct term at the time. The things that you recite, right? It might be mudras. I can't remember.
I don't
But he just
recall.
looked at me like, "No, like I'm wearing this for fashion," sort of thing. And he was like annoyed that I was asking that because he felt like I was like trying to expose him for being a fake about this shit. But I was like just legitimately interested. What prayers he was using on his prayer beads, because like I know a couple. One, like I said, Om Vajrapani Hum Fat is like a Leifa incantation that you do when you're trying to conjure lightning spirits, right? Not that I'm a Buddhist or that I practice Buddhist prayers, but I like researching systems of people that I know and share space with so that I can have relevant knowledge and not just be some dumb, ignorant bitch who doesn't fucking pay attention to other people's cultures, right? So, in my attempt to be respectful and engage him on a level that he might find enjoyable, he instead took personal offense to it, right? And I think that's the problem. Just like, don't, nobody's coming at you just because they want to know what you're doing, right? Like, we're just genuinely fucking curious. And if you're getting mad from somebody asking you what your practice is, you probably are doing something wrong in the first place, right?
I was
Exactly.
just gonna say that. It's just like the whole I love when you talked about like goth people wearing occult symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get really excited and you're like, "Oh, you practice, blah blah blah." They have no clue what symbol they're even wearing. They're just like, "It looked cool." And it's weird because like I'm like, "Oh, okay." Now I am a little bit more judgy where I'm kind of like, "Well, then why, I don't know, why wear?" Cuz for me my experience is always like they're that very nihilistic goth who like is like nothing exists and everything is pointless. And I'm like, "Then why are you wearing?" I mean, there's a lot of atheist occultists, but that's not exactly the same thing as being completely nihilistic and like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a difference there. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, so
Definitely.
why wear things that mean something to someone? You know what I mean? Like that have a deep, potentially ancient, though not necessarily always, but still mean, some
Mm-hmm.
type of symbolic. I don't know. It just feels like wearing mala beads, without knowing why or, it just feels,
Without even knowing there's 108 on a string.
yeah, it's all very disingenuous. And even why there's 100, it's just, I don't know. It just feels,
It's
There's a
because if the prayer
different
beads break,
way.
you need to have more than 100 to have your recitation, and if you fuck up and you skip some, you're always going to have enough.
Sometimes I think so like in that interaction that you had with that person, Sophia, you were just being like, "Oh my god, I just want to know more. Like, let's talk about shit." What and because they were not completely well versed in what exactly they were doing, they got defensive about it. And unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
that's like a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people.
Oh, of course.
I've gotten defensive about things, like we've all done it at some point in our lives about something. Um so but I always try to, but now like that I'm older, a little wiser, I guess, whatever. I try to think like how can I work with that? Like how can we kind of like, you know, like maybe like he had those because something about them spoke to him. You know, he's like, oh, you know, I like these or whatever. So he probably picked them for some kind of reason because he liked them for whatever reason, even if they just look nice. But I guess it comes into like there are ways to have conversations about things and educate each other about things without it becoming a dick measuring contest of like, I know more than you. And I think that's like a huge problem online, because when you are in person, there's a little bit more nuance, there's a little bit more. Also, it's like if you piss someone off, like someone could just punch you in the face for being an asshole. You know what I mean? Like online, you're not gonna get smacked around for mouthing off. So
or thinking that you're a fucking big dick, fucking
yeah,
thrower down person, when in reality you're like a basement dwelling troglodyte. Like, also, no offense to basement
yeah.
dwelling troglodytes, if you know it and you rock it. Like, I ain't gonna tell you how you should be, but like, don't be coming at it fucking acting like you're Chuck Norris just because you want to act real cool.
Yeah, like I
You know?
I ended up in an occulty group voice chat the other day, you know, in a Discord, and it was like fine. You know, it's awkward at first when you don't know anyone and you're just like in this group and you're like chatting with people and you're like, I don't know, and then like things quickly devolve into just talking about non-magical shit and you're like, fuck. It was not the best kind of environment. Honestly, it ended up people just started talking about like self-defense and taekwondo and krav maga, and I was like, that's great.
Interesting.
I'm cool, good for you, but I'm out. Don't do those things.
See ya,
Right.
bye.
I mean, like, I get how that stuff's really fun to talk about, you know, but like, yeah, yeah, I get it.
There's a certain like I would love to. I was talking to Tara about this at South Jersey Pagan Pride. I was like, I would love to do a workshop, a class. I'd love to teach something about magic, but I'm not really sure what it is. And the more that I think about it, I think it might be more about like how to navigate the magical community, how to navigate the social spaces that exist. You know, because there's it's so different from when I was studying my path. Like I could not find a group of people to practice with until I was in college. And you know, and even that was very hard to find. I kind of just stumbled upon them. So there's a lot more places for people to go now, but a lot of these places are just virtual and they don't have this. I don't know. There's nuance to magical conversations. You have to go into magic and magic spaces, especially social spaces, with this like everyone is on an equal playing field, even like despite how many years you've studied X thing, because none of us truly have the fucking answers, you know?
That is one thing that leaves a bad taste in my mouth and makes me distance myself from any occult community, when they inherently think that they are better than other people or capable of doing other stuff that other systems can't, simply because they've drank their own Kool-Aid. Right? Like,
Right.
sorry, not sorry. If you really think that you're that much better than everybody, just go live on a fucking mountain then, because society doesn't need you. Really.
Go be Merlin in the woods. Nobody fucking cares.
Have
Right.
fun. Have fun with your personal reality tunnel that you're reinforcing and drawing off of with other people. But everybody has the capability to do well, not everybody, but a lot of people have the capability to do the same shit that a lot of other people do. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses. If you're not the best at something, you're obviously not going to be as good at somebody who specializes in that thing, but you also aren't somebody who has no unique traits or skills yourself. You absolutely have something that you can do in a very unique way that other people will not be able to do the same way. And I think that treating other systems like they're inherently beneath you, or just smaller to the point where they don't even matter and you could just flick your wrist and they are destroyed, you're drinking your own Kool-Aid, and you should probably check a fucking therapist for your psychosis. Like, really, really, really.
It's true. You have to really keep yourself in check. Like I like we were gonna. I was talking with some close magical friends in a group chat of ours, and I kind of was like, I was like tired after work. I was having like my big dream moments, and I was like, I want us to be like the Cabot witches of Philly. Like I want us to be like the witches, like the ones that everyone knows. And in a way, they all kind of like humbled me a bit, and they were like, we already are. Like we got this article in the Inquirer. Like we have a group that is like drawing people in. Like we're already doing the work.
Can we give a shout out to how amazing Scott looked in that video? Like all that footage that they got of you, and just how fucking amazing you looked.
Did you watch the video?
I cried.
Hold on. Hold on 1 second, everybody. I'm gonna turn on my video. Hold on.
I wonder if did you save the video?
I
wonder if I could find it again.
It's somewhere.
I still have it on my phone.
You have it on your phone? Oh, hey.
Hi. Sorry for my mess. Oh, yeah. I did look pretty good. I looked all mysterious. I was just really focusing.
For
I was just in the
cereal.
moment. Ritual mindset and all that good stuff.
Oh no, Sophia left.
Yeah, I was like, nobody's talking. I'm trying to dry my nails, and I was like, nobody's talking. Why is nobody talking?
I was looking at the stream, making sure it's fine.
I still have shit up on my
We have 5 viewers right now.
I said I had to flip my food.
Oh, my bad.
Fine.
You're good. I'm just cooking some veggie patties,
Are you going veggie?
Huh?
What happened?
Fairy got me in the stream.
Oh, when your camera
Fairy
was freaking
got you.
out. Yeah. Oh, Chris was saying in the chat, in high school I was guilty of wearing clothing with icons on it. I didn't fully understand. I think we all did that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't think any of us were exempt from that.
I definitely was. I never had symbols because they were so hard to get in this small town. There's no way I even had anything on a pentagram until I was actually a straight up practitioner myself.
Yeah, I mean,
especially coming from like an ex-Catholic background, there's no fucking way you were gonna get it in a small town like that.
My first occult jewelry came from Spencer's Gifts at the mall, so like I was a mall kid, and
still am.
And that's what I was, and like kind of like back to what we were saying earlier. Like a goth girl puts on a pentagram, and she's like, "Witch vibes. I'm a witch," and it's like, you know what? But like, witch is a mindset though. So like, if she puts that pentagram on, and she feels like a fucking witch, that's a start, isn't it? It's kind of like we can work with that in this community.
I'm never going to tell somebody that they shouldn't identify as something that they're working towards. I think that sometimes saying that you're the thing while you're working on doing the thing is a very helpful part of the process of becoming the thing. But the only problem that any real humbled, centered practitioner is going to have with somebody who does this is pretending like there's something they're not. Pure and simple. It's almost always that I have space for every beginner in the world to like even wear a pentagram and not understand the implications of a pentagram. My first occult jewelry was a copper medallion from the Lesser Key of Solomon, right? But I took the time to look up the fucking pentacle and like learn the fucking Latin on it and what it meant, right? So like my first occult jewelry was like legit similar to something I wear now with like my 6 of Mars, right? So at that point I was looking more for like growth and learning. So that pentacle that I took at the time, I can't even remember which one it is now, but it made a ton of fucking sense, right? There is no reason for me to not use it, right? And at least I could tell you what it was. Did I act like I was the big bad witch from the mountains because I had bought a pentacle from a gift / low-key witchcraft shop? No, fuck no. I still knew I was learning, and like I was in that space where if I met somebody who knew, I wouldn't try and put myself like I was above them. I'd be asking them for links and resources and books. And that's a whole different interaction than somebody who's just starting out, who wants to put themselves above other people. In fact, anybody who wants to put themselves above other people, be them a practiced fucking magician of 30 years or be they a beginner, it's toxic as fuck and it's never good and it doesn't lead you to any good places.
I was also thinking,
That's why I don't give a shit if someone's a beginner, you know?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Because what I noticed at South Jersey Pagan Pride when we were vending, so like I had printed out like notes for myself, like basically like I took my own grimoire notes and retyped them. So like if someone asked me like, "Oh, hey, red brick dust, you know, what are?" Because sometimes I can't regurgitate information, which is why I write it down, right? Because I can't, you know. So I had reference sheets. And so, and granted, most of the information I pulled from the top of my head, but sometimes I get stage fright and I forget, right? So I had my little reference notes, and I didn't have those reference notes out. Like, I didn't have them like red brick dust and then like a label like it's for this, or I just had the products out. And you could tell, like, people walking by, they were interested in the products. They were like, oh, like, that's interesting. Because what I had, I will say, no one else had. No other vendors had it, because we're selling supplies, like magic supplies. A lot of the vendors at Pagan Pride events are like rocks and crystals and crafted items. Very rarely do you find supply and tool type things, which is what, you know, the whole point of Betwixt occult supplies is. So when I started like interacting with people and talking to them, because sometimes I'm a little shy and I need to really stop doing that, but I was talking to some people and I was like, hey, you know, we've got red brick dust here. We got this, you know, our ritual fire charcoal, got some skeleton keys. You have questions about anything, let me know. And a lot of people were like, oh, you know, like, I'm just starting out. I don't really know what I need. And in my mind, I was like, well, you need fucking all of this shit, obviously. But not just because I was, you know, selling it, but I was like, but in my mind, I was like, well, I wonder, it seems like there's a big need for education and very quickly accessible education. So I think that if I would have had signs like next to red brick dust used for blah, 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 or eggshell powder used for blah, 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 if I just had like at least 3 bullet points, because it's hard to fit everything on like a small little table, but if I had at least like 3 bullet points next to each product that I had made, I think more people would have been like, okay, I think I need this because I know what it's for, kind of thing.
And they can come up with an idea on how to use it themselves.
Yep.
Right. See, when it comes to me with witchcraft, I realize a lot of my witchcraft has always been intuitive. Because we were at like a flea market today. I've always been like a flea market kind of person, flea market yard sale kind of person. I've always been into just like finding things. Like all of the brick dust that I make is from found bricks. You know, like I'm always about like sourcing materials. And I think, I don't know, maybe that might be like my sort of affinity for kind of magic or something like that, like sourcing kind of materials. But like all I know is like, even if I don't know the historical uses of red brick dust or something like that, right? I'm like, well, brick is a strong building material, protection, strong foundation, you know, like.
But it's also reduced to powder, so it could be used to crumble foundations.
Right. And then like it's red, you know, life force, vitality, you know, things like that. So I kind of like intuitively make those associations with things that I just kind of find, you know, just kind of stumbling upon. But I realize not everyone has that same sort of intuition when it comes to stuff. And so a lot of people think that they have to go out and like buy all, because like ceremonial magic, I think, has like a weird kind of overlayer when it comes to magic, because it's like you want the fancy dagger and the fancy chalice and the pretty things. It's like, okay, that's great, but like what about like the nitty gritty, the herbs, the things, the stuff you're putting in the potion? You know what I mean? Like they don't always, that's where like the folk witchcraft and the witchcraft kind of more comes in. So I don't know, I think it's all kind of interesting, how like we have like there's sort of like this like this brief education that people kind of have about magic.
Yeah.
And then there's like the nitty gritty kind of things. So like you can kind of like expand on that. But I think it doesn't have to be hard to learn.
It shouldn't be. I
Right.
think I'm sorry. Mhm.
No, good.
I think that we've said this many times before. I think if there's one thing that I think all of us here and pretty much everyone that's ever been on here would agree is that a proper magical education is really hard to come by. I think that
Mm-hmm.
we kind of get and I think one of the biggest issues that I've always seen when I have people come up to me and they're like, uh hey, I really want to get into this stuff, but I'm kind of frozen,
Right.
because there's what do I do first,
Because a lot of people go into it from a god angle. Like,
Right.
I
That's
want to connect with
always
this deity.
I think that has a lot to do, I think, with like a lot of us grow up Christian, Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
so we
We're looking for
automatically
God.
go with and I don't mind the idea of like, I think people we worry a lot now about, are you historically accurate always 100% of the time worshiping that deity? And it's like maybe my little cup of water and my small frame picture from my black and white printer are more than enough to start saying prayers to a god.
Right.
Maybe. Heads up, it
Because
is, if anyone's curious.
because way back in the olden ancient times, we didn't have black and white pictures that we could just print the fuck out and, like, you know what I mean? Like, so we just had
Right.
ourselves.
Right. And I mean we had like statues, I guess, like they
Right.
had like there were statues of Diana Trivia, who Trivia is one of Diana's oldest epithets and it's her Roman equivalent to Hecate. Um and she would be like on the like at a crossroads as you were walking, they would have statues of Diana Trivia. But like the thing is like, we don't carry around little tiny effigies of our gods in our pockets as much as I think that would be cool. But like um anymore. We used to in a lot of cultures. But
Damn, I missed the perfect opportunity. I had that white angel in my pocket from earlier. I could have literally just like pulled out sitting on
exactly. And I think though that when people are talking about I think too that they get a little bit wrapped up in whether they know it or not, like the theurgy thaumaturgy thing, and it's just kind of like when you want to practice magic, don't think about all don't think about all that right now. When you want to practice magic, and I stand by this, the two things you need to learn how to do when you're starting magic is psychism, so building that third eye, the witch eye, that's super important,
Mm-hmm.
and uh psychic self-defense, and then soon after that magical self-defense, which are technically the same thing, but I feel like magical self-defense, like spells for protection, kind of
Mm-hmm.
come after learning how to protect yourself. You get what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like how to
Yeah.
visualize protection, and then you move into warding your space, casting circles, compasses, cames, what have you. I
All
think
that.
that is the very base of a framework of magical education.
And you know what, Scott? I think you'll be tickled to know that I'm working through all the level 1 stuff with the Gray School.
Hmm.
Literally the first two, like before you take anything else, your prerequisites are 2 psychic arts classes, which are grounding and centering, and the other is like shielding and something like that.
Yep.
So it's like literally those like basic psychic
Mhm.
exercises. They don't let you go any further until you've worked through those and you've
I
completed those.
remember I used to feel so horrible about myself years ago because there was a big push in the occult community where everyone was like, you don't have to be psychic to be a witch and or a practitioner. And it's true, you don't have to start out as a psychic to be a practitioner. But if you are practicing for years, and this is gonna probably get some slack and that's fine. But if you are practicing for years and you do not at some point receive psychic impressions, and you do not experience the clairs or any form of mediumship, there is something that needs to be reworked. I mean, it's not as if you're helpless or anything, but the fact of the matter is that a proper occult practice, a proper magical practice should connect you with that part of yourself, that subtle world. You should be connecting to that in a way where you're feeling it or seeing it, or in some other psycho-spiritual way perceiving it. And if you're not, then you've really got to work on it. Like, I mean, I know people say you don't have to, and no, not to start. You do not have to start, but you have to it's just part of the work.
Take it from me, okay? I use me as a case study. If anything, Scott, I'm surprised you haven't written a dissertation about me yet. So, like, I came from a place I was like, I'm not psychic. I can't. I don't get it. You know, like, just can't do it. And I started working on it, and I was like, okay, all right. And like, I started to get impressions. I cannot predict the goddamn future. No, I'm not sitting here levitating with a crystal ball in my lap. No, that's not happening. But things do happen. I do feel a connection. I have moments where I'm like, oh, like, where am I? What happened? You know, I do have those moments because I did the work to train it. And also in my case too, it was a lot of taking walls down, because I was a kid who grew up with a lot of fantasy in my life, and that was my religion. You know, I always say, like, Star Wars was my religion.
Sure.
And as I got older, I disconnected myself from that fantasy, because I was like, that's not going to get you anywhere in life. You know, you have to go to college and get a job and, you know, be successful that way. And then now I'm coming back to myself. I've always been the little weird magic kid. I just tried to be someone else for so long. And so now I had to, like, kind of bring the fantasy kind of back in. I'm still not like 100%, you know, there yet. I have my moments. I fight with it all the time to unlearn all the things I made myself do. But you absolutely have to practice the psychic arts, at least a basic mastery of it. And I also say Kabbalah too, even though I have not touched Kabbalah yet. But I just know that I have to kind of know a little bit about it in order to understand something. But no, in order to match. I mean, to understand, like, the other things. I mean, like, we're tarot. Everything comes back to fucking Kabbalah for tarot.
Look, it's because Kabbalah has been lifted by a lot of different groups and had its material taken. I'm a big advocate for not just treating Kabbalah like it's the default, because, like, I've had long conversations with Ferry about this. There are Kabbalistic practitioners who fall into the trap of thinking that Kabbalah is literally the be-all, end-all, and they'll push people into it and, like, push those beliefs on people as though they're objective truths, when they're a people's understanding of the universe from their perspective, which is great, and it works, and it translates really fucking well. But when people start trying to say that, like, I don't know, for example, Spirit Model can't hold a candle to it, right? It's because they've drank their own fucking Kool-Aid, right? Spirit Model absolutely fucking slaps if you know how it works, right? And I don't think Spirit Model people are so arrogant as to go tell people in the information model or in other models that it sucks or is irrelevant. We usually let people do their own
correct.
shit.
They're all correct,
exactly.
And they're all incorrect. They're all simultaneously wrong and right.
Who knows? I'm not even going to make that statement, because I can't even know if one is more correct or less than the other, right?
Exactly.
Who fucking knows, really? But there is a very condescending attitude that staunch Kabbalists end up taking towards Spirit Model people, where they'll talk down to us like we simply don't understand things, and it's fucking bullshit, right? A lot of people use very obscure terminology and philosophical concepts so they can gatekeep understanding and act like other people don't get shit because they wouldn't understand that nuance of a take, but then they're not willing to give the nuance take themselves, right? There is a lot of bullshit tied up and around treating Kabbalah like it's the be-all, end-all, and I've seen it from a lot of different individual practitioners. Is it a hallmark of Kabbalah itself? No. But is it a hallmark of the culture of Western esotericism that we've built up at this point? 100% and we really need to divest ourselves from treating Kabbalah like it's the be-all, end-all. I'm not going to practice Kabbalistic teachings. I understand them for the context of relating information with other people, and
that's
how
what I'm saying,
understanding how tarot has been utilized through lifting Kabbalistic teachings. But I will not be practicing Kabbalah, and I will not be treating it like it's an inherently superior system.
Oh yeah,
Mic drop and rant.
Yeah, never do that. But I was just saying, like, because most of the books that I read, there is at least one reference to Kabbalah in almost any fucking book that I pick up
Mm-hmm.
or see. It's been a synchronicity for me, so it's been something that I at least want to have a basic understanding of how it functions, what they're
Totally.
talking about.
I mean,
And I would say if anyone's going to do some heavy, if you're a reader of occult books, probably you might want to know a little bit about Kabbalah.
in all honesty, too, Jay, like I mean, it's no surprise that Western esotericism and occultism has sort of piqued your interest. The grimoire tradition, it fits you. I think in a lot of ways, it sort of fits just what you were talking about alone just a few minutes ago about how you still wrestle with sort of learning to let go at times. Whereas I think the very intentional, not to say that you yourself are rigid, you're a very fun person, but the grimoire system is in and of itself, it's like it is done this way, right? Like this is the way it is done here in this system of magic, and it is not, you don't get to sort of like, you know how you were talking about how people don't really realize that the virtue of an item that we could use in a potion or what have you, you can kind of work that that spirit in a way like with brick dust, you know. Sophia said, you know, you can bring down someone's walls and whatnot, right? But people, that's a very spirit model and maybe even energy model way of thinking. Whereas, you know, for the ritualist or the ceremonial magician or the grimoire traditionalist, you know, I've been a part of entire debates. This is a long time ago, back in the when Tumblr was still big, but like, and this is when Sarah Ann Lawless and Gemma Garay were just coming onto the scene, and traditional witchcraft was like the big and bad and scary, you know, like everyone was like, oh, traditional witchcraft, that, you know, and
scared.
and of course I was drinking it up, right? But like, I I remember there was this huge debate with two trad witches, and I wasn't really in it. I was just sitting there going, "Yeah," you know, from the background. But the other two were like throwing down with this Kabbalist ceremonial magician, and you know, this ceremonial magician he hated the idea that herbs were spirits. He hated the idea that there
Oh
was a
my god.
consciousness. He thought it was primitive. He thought it was ridiculous. He thought it was unintellectual.
Is he
And, you
white?
know, probably. I never
Yeah.
saw a picture of him. Um, and I, like, even though that's even more of an insult, because I'm like, you do know the Celts saw it that way as well. But anyway,
Right.
but I was like, yeah, the whole time they were just like, they were trying to talk to him. At first, they were like trying to be like, here's the history, here's why this is, you know, the spirit model, et cetera, et cetera. They were trying to get him to understand, you know, virtues and potencies and, you know, geniuses, et cetera, and why we think the way we think. And he just was like,
No.
not in it, not having it. And of course, he was coming back with, you know, his ceremonial magician like stuff that I, of course, was like, okay, you know.
Okay. You feel better about yourself? Feel
I
good?
was like, have fun, you know. Um, yeah, and it like, but the thing is like that's always persisted, right? This sort of debate amongst. I think, you know, it's funny because the spirit model, not to paint ourselves as like victims or anything, but like the energy model got real popular, um, especially with the rise of the New Age movement, which the New Age movement is, I mean, however, regardless of how we feel about it, is based in the energy model. There's no argument there, right?
Fair. I'll
Um,
say.
A lot
and
of it is, yeah.
yeah, and um, the spirit model kind of fell out of fashion over time, except for like really hardcore practitioners who like have been, I'm talking like the ones who were like on the occult forums, in the
Right.
early days of the internet kind of thing, right? Like they were the
The
ones still
OGs.
like, being like conjuring the spirit of herbs and things, right? Before using them. And I think that the spirit model has almost sort of become, for a lot of these people, it's the model of like those people that are just like, instead of going on like an academic like diatribe about, insert occult philosophy here, we're just kind of like that their yarrow root is really good for keeping your lover around, like and they're like the peasantry,
Right,
the
but like
gentry.
and it's so
It's
funny
Wyatt
because it's like
said,
having
go ahead, Jay.
having like a 4-page long grimoire entry on Yarrow is just as valid as having Yarrow's good for, what'd you say, like liver? Is that what you said? Like,
No, I said keeping. Well, I said keeping your lover around. You can
oh,
use
keeping your
yarrow to,
lover around. I said, I thought you
yeah,
said something about a
to
liver.
hold your lover
Um,
if you feel like your lover is going to stray. But I don't know what yarrow is good from. Medicinally, I'm not sure. Actually, off
hmm.
the top of my head, I have to
But
look.
still,
Sorry.
both are valid. That's the thing. Is like both uses of it are valid, and
Right,
and
and they
both
both
things are
work.
valid. Yeah.
Hmm.
And like Wyatt said, is he white? And it's not because like all people from Europe who have those traditions believe those things, but there is very much a history of colonialism that happened in Europe a lot longer. So people who are under the Western worldview tend to inherently devalue spirit model, I've noticed. I could theorize as to where that comes from and why that is, but at the end of the day, it ultimately feels like it's a product of Western society, right? Because
Mm,
like we don't view food as like us taking the energy of something to nourish ourselves. We think of it as the nutrients. We think of like the fucking atomic bonds and that our body only works in this alchemical process. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
There's no real reverence for like the underlying shit that goes on that we can't see. Because like you want to
Right.
get really
Yeah.
mystical about it using fucking scientific knowledge, like
Mm-hmm.
your hands can't even touch your other hands at a subatomic level. Like repulsion on for how the atoms work is they never actually touch, right? Like even here, there's a micromolecular
That's
difference
what I was
between my two
doing.
hands separating them, but I can still feel the texture and everything about the other part of it. How? Unless there's some kind of unseen energy transference, there is a way that you can fucking interact with the universe that's not being observed or talked about by the Western world. It's like when they pretend like spirits don't exist and can't do shit. Meanwhile, I'm over here asking spirits to like return lost items to me, and they'll like put an item I lost in my fucking driveway 3 days later so I can find it. Right? Like it's real as fuck. But
I just imagine you being
there's
like
this.
spirits, my car keys, and they just like fly across the
It was
room
an
and like
earring.
slap you in the face.
It it was a beaded earring I really loved that I got at the Two Spirit powwow earlier this year. I was very sad that it fell off. I checked my driveway multiple times with a searchlight, and then I gave up. But I asked them if they would return it, and I made the offering and gave them the terms of the deal. And then it came back 3 fucking days later in the driveway. My partner found it and taped it to my door and was like, "Did you see what's on your door?" And I didn't realize it until they pointed it out, and then I fucking screamed because it was back. Right?
Mm.
um Shit like that happens all the time, and it's really frustrating to have to essentially feel like you're being gaslit by other people who don't want to believe your worldview because they have their own inherent views that they think everybody else should adhere to, right? I don't think
Yeah.
everybody should work spirit model. If it's not for you, it's not for you.
Not for
In
you.
fact,
Yeah.
some people have mental health stuff that makes them very susceptible to psychosis when they deal with spirit model because they will see what happens and then they'll think that too much happens by the hand of spirit, and then they'll start accrediting everything for it, and then they really start sounding like they've lost touch with reality, and then they end up getting put in like a mental health hospital, and like it's tough. Like not every model really will work for everybody. You have to know the vehicle that you transport yourself with when you're doing this, right? And I don't think inherently that we should devalue spirit model just because it's older or it clashes with our modern, very
Hmm.
hard science worldview, right? I want a lot of people to remember that that Western hard science worldview is couched in a lot of white supremacy at times, right? Because it is inherently built to undermine other cultures. And when I say white supremacy, people very often take it to mean the most extreme version of it, where like you're like killing minorities or something. But like the hard truth about it is very often it's a very subtle thing where people expect other people from other cultures to automatically conform to the Western worldviews when they inherently have different beliefs. And then what happens is people will undervalue other cultures because they've already drank the Kool-Aid of their own, right? I don't see indigenous people all the time going out there and being like, oh, you know, these people in the Western worldview, science isn't real. What? We're not doing that. We're not going to people and saying that like their shit doesn't work. Like, fuck, I don't even hear indigenous people talking about like that people shouldn't pray in churches, right? Even despite what happened with Catholicism, like people are like when Notre Dame burned, I heard indigenous people come to the defense and say we do not get enjoyment out of watching other people who pray to creator have their place of worship burned just like it happened to us. That's not okay, right? And like I saw a lot of deep fucking respect for other people's beliefs and cultures that doesn't go both ways. And I think that's part of the problem that I often have with the Western worldview is it inherently devalues everything else and positions itself as the default and above, and then it uses its own over intellectualization to diagnose everything else like it knows everything else better than they can know themselves. And it needs to stop. And it happens a lot in the occult community because we talk about really advanced concepts and we utilize cultural artifacts to have these conversations that are complicated. And when we are reductive, when we're overbearing in our worldviews, and when we don't respect other people's inherent differences, we start doing that white supremacist shit where we think that other people's beliefs should adhere to ours because it's a cultural default, which it's not. End rant. So
I also, if I can just say as well, I know that me and Sophia kind of like hardcore defend the spirit model, and you know it is, and I feel like it comes from like two similar but different. So for Sophia, it's indigenous culture, and for me, it's being raised with a lot of folk magic, and you know being raised in kind of the Italian diaspora and the sort of the inherent animism of old Appalachia. And even though that came from my father who feared it, he still believed in it, right? And he always kind of raised me with this like, you respect it or they're going to get you. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he would talk about the spirits in the land, and he's like, they're going to eat you, you know, like that kind of thing. But he believed in it, and I think that and again, it's not that neither one of us believe that like the other models are insufficient or in any way lesser, because historically, technically speaking, the two oldest probably rose at the same time, which is the spirit model and the energy model. They existed simultaneously. Because if you study Eastern magic, the idea of borrowing chi from a stone, like if you listen to Benabel Wen, who is
she fucking rules.
Metaphysician, she calls herself. She prefers the title of metaphysician. She discusses the idea, like I said, of borrowing the chi from crystals, from herbs, etc. But there is a sort of within that older energy model, the original energy model, I guess, that original concept, there is also the spirit model. The models, as we've discussed many times before, all of us here, the models we all inevitably use all of them, and they all flow into one another in one way or another, right? But I think that remembering to be, we don't. I think that we're a little obsessed at times with the how do I put this? We're a little obsessed with the armchair, right? We love the image of the old, you know, wise person sitting in the big leather chair with a, you know, a floating book in front of them, you know, who can tell you all these things. And the fact of the matter is, and while that's great, you know, you should learn, you should educate yourself, you should, you know, whatever. But it's definitely not it's not the only way, and there are other ways to learn, you know. Um, like my family in Appalachia, for instance, like my grandmother didn't read a book to learn how to preserve food. She learned it through living, preserving food
Mhm.
was part of the culture. It was part of what she did. You know, like
Same thing with my sister. She learned it from her mother. She didn't learn it from a book.
mhm,
And I think that's
exactly.
some of
So
our
like
problem now. So like a lot of us have disconnect from that kind of thing. So like, we never learn those skills or whatever, and so now we are trying to
Lineage-based
learn
teaching.
them. Yeah, and
mhm,
so now we're trying to
same
learn
Yeah.
them
actually,
by reading and watching other people do it in
which
Again,
is
videos.
I'd
valid.
really like to say how that's like a artifact of Western
Yep.
society, right? Because in a lot of indigenous societies, like the youth get raised by the grandparents while the parents are out doing shit. And like the parents are there to help raise them at the same time too, when they're not busy doing the stuff that they need to be doing. But like it takes a fucking community, right? It takes a village to raise an individual, to raise a child, right?
It
Nobody's
does.
born as an individual. You don't you can't even exist as an individual. You exist as a society. You exist as a people, right? And like we have deeply forgotten that in our Western world, the way that we segregate family units and we do the whole nuclear family shit, right? It breaks the connection between the youth and the elders. I grew up barely getting to see my fucking grandparents, right?
Mhm.
And what little teachings I did get from them was like tucked away in the summers where we'd go and visit them, right?
Right.
But like even with how little time I spent around them, they still taught me shit, right? And I think about how that is becoming less and less common, right? We're spending less time with our families. We're spending more time with like these weird segregated nuclear units. We're like doing this shit where you don't even really call your grandparents, you know? Fuck, I still need to call my grandma and I haven't talked to her in a while, right? But it can be difficult to talk to her. Like we grew up separated like that, right? It's not like I can just call her up and we have that deep, intimate, personal relationship, despite how wonderful my grandma is. And I love her to death and back, and she's always been a good person. She doesn't know me at an intrinsic level because we grew up fundamentally distanced from each other, right? And like I didn't really learn a lot from her. I had to learn it from a lot of other people around me, right? I had to use a lot of different elders as stand-ins for my own family, and my own shit I should have been taught from the get-go, right? So like a lot of that is a very deliberate thing in the Western world, as far as I see it, for trying to remove people from their families and their traditional lineage based systems and override them with this idea of what a Western person should be. Because even
Yeah.
within white people, there is no white culture. There's individual people who come from individual groups and individual lands, and that knowledge has been taken from them so long ago, and everybody's just expected to be fucking okay with it, that we're just supposed to be this modern construction of a human being, as though that's like deeply satisfying in what we all want when we don't, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's very true.
absolutely. Mhm.
So, end rant, I'm off my soapbox. Somebody else can talk.
Well, I was gonna say we're at like a little bit over an hour, about just under 20 minutes over an hour. So if there's any sort of concluding thoughts we kind of wanted to drop in to wrap up today's recording session.
Mm.
More like just a heads up because I know I need it all the time. Remember to tend to your ancestors. Their altar
Oh,
probably
yeah.
needs fresh water and offerings and incense and a good clean.
Mm.
That's I think a good one.
Or whatever your individual cultural tradition is. Yeah, if I have any end thoughts to throw out like that, like don't don't go and appropriate somebody else's culture. Do exactly what it is that you come from, even if you have to reclaim it and it's hard, right? Like I went into the indigenous shit because like I can literally show you my family's graves on the fucking reservation, right? And I've spent ludicrous amounts of time on it, and I can fucking prove where we come from and who we are. And because of that, I go into it, right? It's not like I try to take something that doesn't belong to me, right? And even within that, I'm very specific about like which people we come from, what traditions are ours, what traditions I can't even take unless I've undergone other steps, because it's a community based thing. And if your community doesn't accept you, well, you can float around on the outside all you want, but it's complicated. The point being, like, you don't have to inherently live the Western worldview. You don't have to be this weird, individualized, segregated unit like we've been told that people are, you know? Like, we really need to understand that we come from communities and people, and that ultimately we go back to those communities when we die, right? I heavily fuck with the concept that a lot of us are reincarnating ancestors from our own family lines. I'm pretty sure I've been here in my family many different times, and like I come up when these fuckers need help and when they forget who they are or where they exist in the world, I have to fucking come back from the abyss to be like, all right, fuckers, someone has to suffer for you. You know?
One way to look at it.
But look into your culture, look into your family, look into where you come from, and don't be afraid of what you find, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
True. Very good point.
Get yourself a huge chunk of tourmaline like this, and those ookie spookies that we talked about at the beginning of the episode won't be an issue. That's my final thoughts.
We were at a flea market this morning. There was a very nice rock shop there. They actually you could tell like they had a van and like they like found all the rocks themselves and tumbled them and
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
found that very big.
Well, this is
Fine.
mine. This is my old
Oh, that
one.
was
This
yours.
isn't
The other
new
one's in the
one.
bag.
No, the new one's
I
sitting
remember
on the
that
table.
one. You let me
Yeah.
hold that one, and I was like,
This,
and everything.
yeah, it's on the all the my stones are at the on the right side of my desk.
God, I don't know why you just jogged the memory out of my mind, but I read a story one time about a guy who didn't even believe in ghosts who managed to punch one time because he was so pissed off at it that he actually hit it, and the
Why does
ghost
that
fucked
sound
off
like something
immediately.
I would do? Like I'm so pissed off I punched a ghost.
It was like this white guy who didn't want to have to be dealing with this shit, and there was like a curse in his family's house or whatever. So when the ghost came out, he just fucking swung at it, and then it was like, okay, fuck this, and just left. I don't know where that came from,
That's hilarious.
but yeah, punch
Ghost
ghosts,
puncher.
punch ghosts.
I guess. I mean, if they're pissing you
If
off,
I was a
if they
ghost
deserve it.
and somebody was willing to throw hands at me, I'd reconsider. Just saying.
Alrighty, everyone. I think that will wrap up today's session for today. If you get into a boxing match with a ghost, please try and get it on video. We would like to see that.
Or just like recount the story and give us your spooky tale.
In vivid detail.
In fact,
actually,
Although
us
I
all
might
your
laugh,
spooky
but
tales.
it's not at you.
No, give us all your spooky tales. In fact, maybe we make like a little subsection of the Discord that is specifically for people just telling spooky tales about shit that's happened to them, and maybe we read some of the good ones. You know?
Yeah, that could be fun for this time of year. So if you have a spooky
Yeah.
tale and you're listening, or you're listening later,
I always have
and you're in
spooky
our
tales.
Discord,
That'd be cool.
Um,
Like even like our like if they have like spooky like ritual stories, like where like something actually like paranormal happened during your rituals, or you know ghost stories,
we
or
want to
just
hear
like
about
other
all your successes and all your fuck ups
and all your failures, definitely. All right.
Yes, but yeah, we're gonna log out of here. I was looking at the chat.
I just made spooky tales, so feel free to put your
Oh.
shit in spooky tales.
There you go. Now
Wonderful.
we have spooky tales.
Spooky tales.
Alrighty, everybody. We will see you all in the next one. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.